Fitness Business Podcast Snapshot. How to identify where to focus time and attention in a multifaceted, fast-paced business. Simon talks us through their performance mapping process, and finally, we finish with 3 key ways to continuously move your business forward. All of that and more coming up in today's show. Welcome to the industry's leading business podcast for fitness owners and managers. This month's interviews are brought to you by our podcast partner, Tribe Team Training, the world-class leaders in small group training experiences. Earn unprecedented profit, gain guaranteed results for your members, and ensure the very best small group training education for your coaches. Contact Tribe Team Training today and have a conversation to see just how much opportunity there is at your fitness facility. Go to tribeteamtraining.com or click on the link in today's show notes. Welcome to you all, and thank you so much for joining me for my final episode of the Fitness Business Podcast and our 5-year anniversary of the show. That's right, it's our 5th birthday this month, and to celebrate episode 294, I have a very special guest joining me. Simon Flint is the CEO of Evolution Wellness, one of the largest wholly owned fitness club networks in Southeast Asia. Now, I've got a pretty good feeling that the name Simon Flint will be familiar to many of you out there. Simon is one of the most experienced and well-respected leaders in our industry, with over 26 years' experience in the fitness and wellness sector. Evolution Wellness has a 6-brand portfolio across 176 sites and 6 countries and growing. They have 7,000 plus employees, 370,000 customers, and 300 million plus in revenues. But rather than me say too much more right now, I'm actually going to let Simon tell you a bit more about their brands and their business just as soon as we start the show. My interview with Simon Flint is coming up in less than 90 seconds time. But first, I just want to take a really brief moment to say a few thank yous before we roll into my final interview on the weekly show. And I promise that I will keep this to a maximum of 30 seconds. Otherwise, I know that Harper will start playing music to get me off the stage. So here we go. Thank you to every single one of you listening right now, and to all of you who have listened over the years. Thank you to our incredible guests. Your generosity to share your knowledge has made our show what it is today. Thank you to our podcast partners for your amazing support over the years, and the biggest heartfelt thank you to our team. JT, Alicia, Harper, Mel, and Diana, thank you, thank you, thank you. It has been the greatest joy and honor to host the show over these past 5 years, a time in my career that I will never forget and one that I will always be grateful for. How did I go? Did I get it in under 30? I hope so. So thank you so much for staying with me. Now, one last thing. Be sure to tune in next week for your new host's debut show. Yes, Dory Nugent is in the hot seat from next week onwards, and we have a little sneak peek of that episode coming up after today's main interview. So make sure that you listen out for that. Okay, it is almost time. But first, here's a message from our podcast partner, Tribe Team Training. Tribe Team Training is a proven turnkey standalone profit center for your fitness business. Find out more, go to tribeteamtraining.com or click on the link in today's show notes. For all of you listening to the podcast version of this interview, I want to let you know that we have also recorded this one as a video, and I would love you to do 2 things. Number 1, listen to the audio version start to finish now. Then, number 2, go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and watch the video, because on that video, you will see that there is a bonus section where Simon shares his computer screen and shows us some examples of some of the key components that we discuss in today's show. So please take the time to listen, then watch and go ahead and share with your team or with anyone else that you feel would benefit from the information that we speak about today. So without further ado, enjoy this week's interview with the CEO of Evolution Wellness, Simon Flint. Simon, welcome along. It is an absolute honour and a privilege to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you again, Chantal.
Absolutely brilliant. Now, as I just mentioned in your bio before, I gave everyone a quick introduction about you. And you, as I mentioned, have 5 fitness, 1 wellness, 1 software brand in the Evolution Wellness portfolio. So just to start off today, would you set the scene and just give us a brief overview about those brands?
Sure. Well, Evolution Wellness came to be about 3 years ago with the coming together of 2 of Southeast Asia's leading fitness brands, those being Fitness First Asia and Celebrity Fitness. And we brought these brands together under Evolution Wellness. And the name Evolution Wellness is really the aspiration of our business. What we set about wanting to achieve was to build on if you like, a continuum of fitness to wellness. We recognize that fitness isn't everything, and we have a captive audience of people who are by default interested in living better and being well. So we felt that building a portfolio that was complementary to the members and customers' needs by being additive, other areas of wellness, be it recovery, be it nutrition, be it mental well-being, we felt that a really strong opportunity would be to build this portfolio of companies. So we have Celebrity Fitness and Fitness First, as mentioned. We have another smaller brand called Chi Fitness in Malaysia, which is 11 clubs. We recently bought a great little business, a boutique brand called Fire Fitness, again, born in Malaysia and founded by some industry veterans with a lot of experience in the field. And we've now built upon that acquisition, quite a small acquisition, just 2 entities, opened another 2 sites. So we have 4 of them now. And our ambition with Fire is to license that globally. And I'm really excited about that because there are so many options with this brand. It can be a 1 studio, a 2 studio, a 3 studio across something like 6 or 7 different modalities, from bar, yoga, spin, boxing, etc. So that's Fire. So to recap, Celebrity Fitness, Chi Fitness, Fire, Fitness First. And then another brand called GoFit, which we created in-house, an organic build process from scratch, actually. And that is a high-value, low-price concept where, again, we have an ambition to license globally. And we see great opportunity there when you think about the addressable market at the lower price points. We deliver those lower price points through having very high tech-supported membership experience, fewer people. But that's something we're excited about too. And a wellness brand that we acquired in July of 2018 is a fantastic brand called 5 Elements, multi-award winning, born in Bali about 10 years ago with a wellness retreat up in the north, in the hills of Ubud. An amazing place, an amazing setting for a fantastic wellness brand, which is all about creating the spaces for life transformation. So really different dimension to the standard fitness brands, but something that we felt had enormous potential to build on its great reputation, its thought leadership, and the talent within the organization to build some brand architecture around it. So since acquisition, we have opened up what we call 5 Elements Habitat, which is an urban sanctuary in Hong Kong. And we have further plans with that. We have a plant-based dining concept, and that's another brand that we see great potential globally with as well. You mentioned also a software brand. We have a product called Circuit, which is a membership administration platform that we use for our 400,000 members at the moment. So administering millions of transactions from a joining process to a billing run to personal training transactions, check-in, check-out. So a lot of data flows through that product. And we have a front-facing app that dovetails with Circuit, which we have white labeled across our Fitness First and Celebrity brands, and will continue to do so across the other brands. We're taking that product to market as well. That's been built over 20 years, built by the industry for the industry. So is a very, very easy to use product, but it really covers everything that an operator can need at scale. So it's fit for multi-country, many hundreds of sites it can cater to. So that's another product in the portfolio. And at any one time, we're always looking to either partner strategically or perhaps joint venture or fully acquire a business that would fit within our portfolio, bringing further value to the portfolio as a whole and to the individual brands through synergy.
Simon, in that description, you mentioned, of course, Fire Fitness, one of the brands that falls under your portfolio. And, you know, it's interesting because some of the listeners might actually remember we had Tracy Minoknuku on the show back in January of this year. She came on the show with Emma Barry and they talked about some different strategies for group fitness. So if anyone missed that, I'll make sure that I put a link in the show notes so you can go back and check that out. And I have to let you in on a little secret, which is throughout COVID shutdown, I've been at home doing Tracy's Fire workouts in my lounge room. Phenomenal. So good.
She's a fantastic talent and a heck of a teacher. And, you know, talk about walking the talk. She walks the fire.
Big time, big time. It's just brilliant. And, you know, one of the things that I was thinking about as you were taking us through that portfolio and the volume of brands that you actually have is, you know, as the CEO of so many different brands, how is it that you choose where to focus your time and where to focus your attention?
Well, really, it's growth strategy that determines what the so-called big rocks are and therefore what the most important things are to focus on. But of course, in any given organization that is in growth mode, things are busy. I hate to use the word busy, but it's true. There's a lot happening. Therefore, it's always quite dynamic and you need to be able to react from one thing to the next. But going back to the concept of strategy informs focus, we determine our strategy by thinking about where do we want to play, and then we think about how do we want to win the game that we're playing, and that, you know, sets us off in a certain direction with certain priorities upon which we need to execute. So if I were to kind of put things in order of flow, in an ideal world, or all things being equal, we look to strategize, to execute, to operate, and then to iterate. And the last two aspects, the operate and iterate, kind of go into a performance management loop where you then go into what we call inspect what you expect mode. So you've set the targets, you've set the ambition, you've strategized, you've executed, and things are now in play, or, you know, might be business as usual, so to speak. And then the focus tends to be to have a look at, are things performing the way we wish? And through a normal performance management process, then providing the time to be sowing the next seed for feeding the ambition of growth, as it were. And I think that performance management loop is something that we've worked on over the years and is reasonably effective. You know, we're quite big on performance management and creating a set of tools that 7,000 people across our organization can use, and we don't have to be inventing new ways of dealing with things. So that's really how we see it, you know, leadership, culture, and a performance management set of tools.
So, Simon, let's talk a little bit more about that leadership side of things, because we caught up briefly just before today's interview and you were telling me about the coaching culture that you have within the business, and specifically you mentioned this certified master performance coach kind of training that you take your leaders through. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's probably 10 years ago now where in one of our internal surveys where we seek to see where we sit from an employee value proposition score, if you like. You know, it's a third party survey where you might be benched against other small businesses, medium businesses, or even multinationals. And during that time, 10 or so years ago, one of the consistent pieces of feedback that came out was to say that this organization could do less telling and more listening. And that was driven, I think, through the drive to perform, you know, to be market leader, to open more clubs than anyone else, to be more successful than anyone else, and to go harder and faster. And sometimes in that drive, experience and past experience can mean that people will tell, do it like this, do it like this, do it like this. And of course, when you have a situation like that, people will sit and wait to be told what next, and not necessarily think for themselves and act for themselves. So this was a really important flag, if you like, to say, okay, this organization can do less telling and more listening. So that led us on a journey of investigating what we could do about it, and then asking ourselves, well, what does it mean to be a better listening organization? And one of the first steps that we took I'd read a book, and I'm going to forget the title of it. I think it's called Coaching for the Asian Mindset. And whether it's an Asian mindset or a different mindset is actually irrelevant, because the principles of coaching are true anywhere. But I got in touch with the author and managed to have a discussion about coming in and training our team. So myself and I think about 14 of us on the executive team went through a 60-hour course with this gentleman. I give him a plug because he's great. His name is YK Leon, and a man of his craft, an exemplary gentleman when it comes to the art of coaching, actually. So over a period of time, we went through a 60-hour course and became certified master performance coaches. And many of us found that a really impactful experience in becoming more self-aware, improving relationships with others on the team. And we determined that at that point, we wanted to cascade that culture through the management team. This is only 14 people in an organization of thousands. So we needed to make sure we could cascade and really create a culture. And when we say, we have a culture of, I think we've got to be honest with ourselves and recognize that you only have a culture when you ask a really good number of your staff, what's it like to work here? And if the threads of consistent feedback say that it's like this, that's what your culture is. So we determined that we needed to go through this process and to become certified ourselves. We then, our head of L&D, Jacqueline, then worked with another outside resource, a third party, to help build something that was very relevant to us, so that the theory of coaching, the concepts and the norms of the coaching process applied to our business. So taking the applied science, taking the pure science and making it applied science, and again built a course for us to disseminate internally, and that's alive till today. And I think it's done really well for us, because that way of working, that coaching culture, underpins everything that we do. And just to elaborate on what it is, there are two basic pieces to that coaching philosophy, or the leadership philosophy. One is based on the good old Ken Blanchard principles of the old 1 Minute Manager series, which is to catch people doing something right every day. It's so easy to point out when someone's doing something not quite right, or dare I say the word wrong, but it doesn't necessarily help too much. Of course, we have to redirect when we see things that are not quite right, but people's behavior is more reinforced by catching people doing something right. A pat on the back, that's fantastic. That's great to see you doing that. I'm really proud of you. Well done. That kind of simple 1 minute feedback just perpetuates that great behavior and allows people to carry on getting better and better. Then on top of that, that's the basic front line every day. Let's feel good about what we do and catch people doing something right. On top of that is the coaching culture itself, which is about, first of all, understanding and being trained as a coach, but being able to ask powerful questions so that anyone on the receiving end of the coaching conversation is able to think and reflect and propose solutions. Every manager would like their team members to come to them and say, I've got this problem and here's the answer. This is what I'm going to do. What do you think? And that is more likely to happen if people are conditioned to anticipate that the coach will say, what do you think? So rather than telling that chance to step back and pause, to ask questions that cause reflection and scaling questions, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel that this is the right path? Well, 7. Okay, what would it take to make it an 8? That person has an answer to that question. So it's that kind of thing that we found has worked really, really well for us. And we're really passionate about keeping it alive. So that's the performance management culture for us.
Thank you so much for explaining that in that level of detail. And you did mention a few books in there, of which I am going to put the link in the show notes. Certainly, if people haven't read The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard, then that needs to go at the top of the list. And I did a quick Google while you were talking, and I managed to find, now I don't know if this is the book because you couldn't remember the name of the book, right? I found How to Develop a Talent for Training. Was that it?
That may be a different one. YK, that's another one of his. I think it's something about coaching for the Asian mindset, something along those lines.
You did mention that. There you go. Well, I will do a little bit more searching between now and when we release the video. I'll make sure that I have that link ready and set to go. So another question for you, Simon, because you mentioned one of the first, I guess, catalysts for you going down this path and exploring this coaching program was that you received the feedback about less telling, more listening. As you work through the years, as you look over the years, how frequently would you seek feedback from your team to see how they're going as far as, or see how the culture is progressing? How frequently would you do that these days to check in with them?
We pretty much do a deep dive, if you like, on an annual basis. So when we do annual performance reviews and not necessarily year-end reviews, but periodic reviews, the deep dive tends to be on an annual basis. We do have ad hoc opportunities. We operate across 6 countries and 6 brands, as we've discussed. So the timing can be a little bit different by brand, but every year we'll do a deep dive and take a measure on that. And of course, that feedback is everything, isn't it? You've got to be able to know where you stand so you know where to go next.
It is so important. So I just want to thank you again for going into that detail. Now, one of the other areas that we talked about earlier on today was the performance mapping that you do, and you showed me that fantastic graph. Can you maybe explain a little bit more about that to the listeners so that they can understand the significance of the performance mapping within your organisation?
Sure. Well, again, this is, I must give credit to a colleague of mine who is our managing director in Indonesia, who, this is 2004, not 2014.
We're going back a while ago now.
So there's another book to reference. This one's a little bit more academic and a bit of a harder read, but the principles in it are very simple and true. It's a book by Professors Kaplan and Norton. And again, the title will escape me, but it's about strategy maps and the concept of building a strategy map based on 4 simple principles or 4 perspectives, let's say. So when you look at an organization and all that it does, all of the metrics that are available to you, effectively, there are 4 perspectives that the average strategy map will look at things through, or 4 lenses, if you like. There's the financial lens, which tends to be made up of lag indicators of performance. So you're reading something financial today, it's history. It's not a future indicator. But of course, it's important because that's how we value businesses. Then there's the market perspective. So the market being your external customer and your internal customer. What are they both saying? What's the temperature reading of the market perspective? And in our case, we have members. So we can survey members and ask them how they're feeling, but equally, members can vote with their feet without saying anything. They can walk out of the door and not come back. So more metrics that we can think about through the customer lens or the market lens, as they say. Then coming down the map, there's the internal perspective, or simply put, the well-dos, the stuff that any organization has to do well every day such that their customers think better, stay longer, spend more, advocate more, so that the financial returns are improved. So that's 3 perspectives. Sitting underneath at the foundation there is the people perspective, or the talent perspective, if you like. So the principle then that you overlay with that is there's a simple cause and effect relationship. So you start at the bottom. For us, using our language, we strive to attract and retain the best talent. We commit to quality training and development. These are all of the things in our people perspective. Once we do that, we invest in people. We then do these daily basics, the things that we do every day, which are populated by brand, right? So we pledge to give a greeting by name to anyone that walks in the door. That's one of the just little thing that we say we're going to do in brand A. That's populated with about 20 different things that we think are important in every single day, which lead to the customer behaving in certain ways, which again give us a financial return. So that's the process. We use that as a backdrop for training. All of our performance discussions around service, around member sentiment, around group fitness execution and the quality of our product, the quality of our facility, everything sits in there. So when we have performance management conversations, we don't have to invent anything new every time. It's always different because the scenarios are different and things change every day. But we always go to the backdrop of our performance map. And from there, we have something that we call freedom within a framework. So this is not a form-filling exercise. It's a poster on a wall or a big chart on a wall that's there to remind people that if we do these things well, this is how people think about us. But on top of that, we have something that we call the game plan. And the game plan is effectively a template, if you like, that's based on the performance map that allows any manager, any site manager who runs one of our clubs or one of our entities to build their own game plan with their team. So we have the performance map as a backdrop. Teams will sit down, ideate, brainstorm, and put their game plans together in order that they can achieve their targets, satisfy their members, etc. So that allows our teams to be empowered, but they're empowered with a kind of standard set of tools that falls back on our leadership philosophy, which therefore sets a performance management culture. So across the 175 managers that we got, when they speak together, they're speaking a common language, but they've all got their own ideas that they can contribute. So we find it very effective, and it's great to have a proprietary set of go-to tools that are founded on such solid principles.
Can I just go back and check one of the phrases that you use because it's stuck in my head? Did you say freedom within framework?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So the performance map providing that framework and the concept of cause and effect, but the freedom to come up with great ideas. And again, that's the coaching piece, right? If I'm asking powerful questions, what do you think about this? What do you think will be the top 3 ways that we could improve this? That's the freedom that we need. I have another saying that I've used for years, which is 99% of the answers lie in the clubs. You know, myself and the executive team will sit in a boardroom a lot talking about strategy, but when it comes down to operating detail, the answers are in the club. We don't have to think too far. We can walk into our nearest club and speak to our staff members. They have the answers, even if they don't know it. It just needs a powerful question.
Now, as our regular listeners know, we do wrap up each of our shows with our Keep Me Fit inspiration. So for today, I think it's pretty fitting that we talk about evolving and we talk about evolution. So do you want to share with us today your top 3 tips for always evolving and keeping our business moving forward?
Get your pen ready now for Keep Me's Fit Bizpiration.
You know, Chantal, when you pose this question, I'm going to be very honest and say there are not 3 things that I don't have 3 mantras, but reflecting on this and giving it some time, I think what's important about evolution, which speaks to what we're trying to do with our brand and continue to grow, is the concept of feedback. So my number 1 would be to look and listen inside the organization more frequently. And if you like, that's a note to myself. I mentioned earlier that we do an annual pulse check or a deep dive, if you like, to find out how our staff are feeling. But I think it's really important to do that really frequently, because the motivation of your team is your potential to succeed. And if there are any obstacles to that are unspoken, unearthing them and doing something about it is really key. I mentioned earlier, I think 99% of the answers lie with the team members, and just checking what those answers are more frequently is important. So look and listen inside the organization is my number 1. Number 2 would be look and listen outside the organization. 2 strands to that. 1 would be, again, the more frequent understanding of customer sentiment. And again, it's a note to self. I think that we as an organization need to do more of it. Data is so much more easy to come by now because people are using apps and platforms where we can not only speak to people in surveys and focus groups, but actually look at their data, look at their footprints. Where have they been? What did they participate in? How long did they do it for? Did they walk out halfway through? So looking and listening outside of our office environment into the customer base is key. And the other piece about looking outside is, of course, looking around at our competitors, our peer groups, maybe our industry mentors. And I think it's important to really keep connected. During this time, again, we're speaking at this sort of COVID time where I'm speaking to you from. I'm still in a sort of soft lockdown, if you were. This has given me an opportunity to reconnect with people I haven't spoken to for quite a long time. But I've determined that I'm going to keep it up because there's so much more to learn by looking outside more often and sharing experiences in those conversations. So look and listen inside, look and listen outside. And then my number 3 is really simple, and it's keep learning. I think that I heard someone talk about lifelong learning the other day, and it's an expression I've heard many times, but actually when you think about it, what does that really mean? Does that mean I'm going to commit to enrolling myself in courses every quarter? Well, maybe. Again, during lockdown, I managed to find some time on 8 weekends, about 8 or 10 hours a day on 8 weekends, actually, to get myself certified in something new. But it was enlightening. It was, I'm 50 now, and I haven't done a course like that for a while. 10 years was the last one when we did our coaching course. But a commitment to learning, I think, is really important, because things change so fast, and even our own beliefs and biases changed. So I think it's good just to check back and reflect and understand, well, what have I learned in this last month or quarter or whatever it may be, and use that to improve our thinking. Think of it as a kind of a version 2.0, 2.1 or 2.2. It's time for an upgrade every month, every quarter. So keep learning is my final message.
Keep Me, smarter member retention. KeepMe.ai.
I absolutely love that perspective, Simon. And I have to say, here at the Fitness Business Podcast, we are all about learning and education and personal and professional development. And you have just played a major part in all of our learning and our professional development. So on behalf of all of the FBP family, thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge, to share your years of expertise, and to also give us a very special look behind the scenes of the business, look into all of the Evolution Wellness brands. We are so grateful for your time. Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure, Chantal. Thank you.
Thank you once again to Simon, and a reminder to go ahead and watch that interview in full. You can find it at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Now here's a message from our podcast partner, MyZone. MyZone is a wearable technology platform that leverages personal goal setting, gamification, and social platforms to motivate your members. To find out more, go to myzone.org.
Quickfire 5.
This week's Quickfire 5 guest is Lisa Simone Richards. And for this segment, I'm handing you over to your brand new host, Dory Nugent. Take a listen.
And here are your 5 quickfire questions with Lisa Simone Richards. Lisa, why do you do what you do?
Because if nobody knows who you are, they simply can't work with you.
Oh, that one's good. I like that. And number 2, what's one ritual that helps you become better at what you do?
Really getting rooted in intention before I move into the task at hand and thinking about who do I want to be and what's the outcome I want to create.
Excellent, excellent. And number 3, what app or system do you use to stay in control of your workload?
Right now, I am absolutely obsessed with Asana. I'm someone who tends to be super last minute, so I love being able to delegate my tasks and my VA's tasks just to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks.
Oh, nice, nice. And number 4, what's one book, podcast, or blog you would recommend our listeners, and why?
Oh my God, I love this question today because about 2 weeks ago, I finished reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know why it took me this long, but I feel like my entire business is getting a makeover based on what I read in that book.
All right. Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Yeah, by Robert Kiyosaki.
All right. Awesome. Number 5, what topic will you focus on in your main interview?
It's going to be all about leverage. There's somebody out there who already has a whole group of your ideal clients pulled together. So now how do you get your way in there so you can get in front of them?
Perfect. Awesome. Great job with our 5 quick fire questions. Stay tuned for Lisa Simone Richards' interview coming soon.
Thanks to Dory and Lisa Simone for today's Quickfire 5. Make sure you tune in next week to hear that episode in full. I chose this week's Rewind show because you may have just heard Simon Flint mention the name Rich Hudson during our interview. Well, Rich is actually the business development manager for Evolution Wellness, so I thought it was very fitting that this week's show is a rewind to the interview that Rich did with us in December 2019. It was called How to Raise Your Membership Prices. Now, during that episode, we discussed what to consider before raising your membership prices, how and why Rich chose to increase prices by 25%, and he shares 3 tips that owners must do when deciding to implement an increase. To take a listen to that episode, go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and search for episode 267. Enjoy and happy listening. Before we finish off today, a reminder that all the resources and the links, of course, for today's episode can all be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you to our foundation partner, Active Management. Active Management are a fitness business coaching company that help clients all over the world. And this month, I have a business tip for you all. Join the Active Management Facebook community. It's an amazing group and you'll meet like-minded fitness owners and managers from all over the world. All you need to do is go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community. It's a highly engaging community where JT from Active Management shares loads of resources. Things like photos from inside gyms, reasons to exercise, a monthly book club, challenges, and even ideas under $50. It's free and it is an awesome community. Once again, just go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community. Thank you all so much for joining me, not only for this week's episode, but for all the times you have tuned in over the past 5 years. Thank you. Please be sure to tune in next week as your new weekly host, Dory Nugent, joins you for her very first episode. So once again, immense gratitude and huge virtual hugs for all of you across the world. And now for the final time. What you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.